Boyfriend revealed my flatmate's unexpected confession of love for him, and now I'm stuck in an awkward living situation. I moved into my flat last October, stepping into the space left by a mutual friend shared between myself and my new flatmate, both of us 27. Right from the start, our home developed a genuinely positive atmosphere, our attitudes, expectations, and habits aligning almost effortlessly. We weren't close friends just yet, the kind to grab brunch on Sundays or be each other's plus ones at parties, but we were absolutely friendly, and she always struck me as normal, easygoing, and level-headed. When lockdown began in March, my boyfriend, he's 31 and we've been together for 2 years, was living with his sister. But his mother, who had begun chemo and was living by herself, needed somewhere safe where she could be looked after, so she moved into his old room. That left my boyfriend looking for a place to stay, so of course, he moved in with us. Before anything was decided, my flatmate and I had a real, honest conversation about ground rules and expectations, but she was immediately understanding. The flat is massive for just 2 people, and her own room functions like a cozy little granny flat, so she was completely fine with the arrangement, and she made that very clear. The 3 of us coexisted easily. We didn't spend a ton of time together, just the occasional evening playing games or hanging out, but our interactions remained friendly and relaxed. My boyfriend really stepped up and, as a way to thank us for letting him stay, cooked dinner every night for both of us. This new routine meant we started having our evening meals together, and my flatmate seemed genuinely pleased to be included. Everything felt comfortable, and the energy in the flat was great. Then, just last week, my boyfriend pulled me aside, clearly anxious, almost flustered, and told me something that completely knocked me sideways. While he was out in the courtyard hanging up laundry, she apparently ambushed him from behind and, without warning, launched into a long speech about being in love with him. She told him, very seriously, that she knows he's with me and respects that, but she has deep feelings for him, and if he were ever single, she'd be available. She begged him not to tell me. She didn't try to kiss him, thankfully, but she did try to hold his hand during this exchange. Since then, things inside the flat feel so awkward I can barely stand it, and as far as I know, my flatmate believes my boyfriend hasn't breathed a word about her confession. She hasn't made any more overt moves or said anything else to him, but he has noticed that she's been more touchy lately, like brushing his arm as she walks past, and it's making my skin crawl. He's confused too, because, aside from dinner, he's rarely been alone with her and hasn't done anything to encourage this. I reached out to the mutual friend who first connected us, desperate for some context, but she was just as shocked as I was. Apparently, my flatmate has never pulled anything like this before, and our friend has never known her to have a crush on anyone, let alone act on it. I haven't seen her behaving weirdly in any other way or noticed her treating me differently since all this happened, but I can sense the tension simmering beneath the surface. Moving out isn't an option, not right now, with the virus, money issues, and the general chaos of the world. So here I am, trapped in this thick awkwardness, unsure how to tackle this bizarre triangle that's formed out of nowhere, and wondering what the hell to do next. Update 1. Things had gotten so intense over the last few days that I felt I needed to lay it all out, especially all the context I didn't get to share at first. First off, I trust my boyfriend completely. Even if I didn't, the apartment is big but not gigantic, I know where he is at all times. After my housemate confessed, he waited a couple of hours to tell me. He explained later that he'd been scared I wouldn't believe him, or that I'd be angry, since at first he'd brushed it off as some weird joke that just made him feel uncomfortable, but it left him feeling just plain weirded out. I completely agree that her constant touching had crossed so many lines and become outright harassment. Plenty of people might suggest he should have confronted her himself, and while I get that urge, I genuinely understand being trapped in a situation where someone is harassing you and the power dynamic is all wrong. You start second-guessing your own memories of it all. Did it really happen? Is it my fault somehow? He's not even on our lease, and he was worried for me, too, since she pays the bigger share because her room is like a mini granny flat. Part of me wondered if it could have been a hypomanic episode, since I have BP2 myself and get the love rush, but she showed none of the usual signs, never tried to contact my boyfriend outside of the weird, unwanted touching. I don't think she was actually in love with him, not really. But then came yesterday. After a few tense days of trying to just avoid her, my boyfriend and I were in the kitchen at breakfast. She was hanging around in the living area. I went to our bathroom, she's got her own ensuite, to brush my teeth. On my way back out for my phone, I caught sight of her sidling up behind my boyfriend while he was looking into the fridge. Right in front of me, she ran her hand and forearm across his lower back, where his t-shirt had ridden up a little. My boyfriend didn't see me, but he yelped, loudly, then just completely lost it. He shouted stop at her, loud enough that everything froze. When they both saw me, he kept saying, you see? You see? This is what I was talking about. I was so angry I felt it in every muscle of my body. My housemate realized in that instant that she'd been found out, that he had told me everything, and she bolted to her room and slammed the door. He and I decided to cool off with a walk. The whole time, he apologized for not being more firm before, but he was so shaken up. Part of me just wanted to storm up to her and confront her head on right there. My anger was leaping ahead of every rational thought. Instead, He told me maybe we should give her an opportunity to manage the situation diplomatically, especially with all the tension of lockdown. Maybe she was just incredibly immature and had let a fantasy get way out of hand. I was willing to show her some compassion, to trust the input of a mutual friend who thought naivete might have played a part. When we came back, we knocked on her door several times to talk, but she wouldn't answer. She was seeing my WhatsApp messages, so I knew she was just ignoring us. By late afternoon, I'd had enough. I knocked again and said I was coming in. I sat her down on her bed and, as gently as I could, but firmly, told her it was completely out of line, that we were both deeply uncomfortable, and if she still wanted to live here, she'd need to get over herself and get past this. She immediately burst into tears, sobbing about how sorry she was, what a bad person she is, and how the pressure of lockdown just got to her. I actually felt a little bad for her, and tried to show some compassion. But then she hit me with, "It's just so unfair that the guy I'm in love with has a really great girlfriend." That was it for me. Unfair? Unfair? That was the last straw. I told her she had a lot of growing up left to do, and she owed the house a real apology. That, of course, prompted a full-on meltdown, loud, weeping, hiccuping, snotty tears. Just as I stood up to leave, I spotted my shirt hanging on her clothes rack. I grabbed it and went back to my room. After that, she continued sobbing even louder, this time with the door wide open, all the way until 7 p.m. It seemed like she wanted as much attention as possible. That's when I cracked. I grabbed our emergency contact sheet and called her mom, telling her she needed to come and pick up her daughter immediately. I'd never met the woman before, but when she arrived, she swept in like a superstar. The look of annoyance and embarrassment on her face made it clear this wasn't the first time her 27-year-old had had a tantrum. My housemate went quiet the second she realized her mom was there. Neither of them said anything to us. My boyfriend and I just hid in our room until they left. At this point, I doubt she's coming back soon. I texted her and told her that if she ever does, she needs to give me a heads up first. Honestly, I have no idea when, if ever, I'll see her again. Technically, our lease doesn't end until August, but my boyfriend and I think we can make it work until then or find someone new to move in. And if not, it's not long till we can leave for good without her. Oh, and as a coda to this drama, my boyfriend wondered if, since she took a blouse, she might have taken more. So, yes, I did go back into her room to check her clothes rack, just to see what else might have gone missing. I found my jeans, my t-shirt, one of my boyfriend's work shirts, a vinyl I owned, my childhood charm bracelet, taken right out of my jewelry box, and even a sheet of my old antidepressants, just on display, right there. Who knows what else she stashed away in her drawers. I left everything where it was for now. I don't want a single thread of doubt as to whether she stole it. There's no chance she keeps living here, not after this. I'm angry and feel so violated, and my boyfriend feels the same, but I can also see how hard an uncontrolled mental health problem can wreck your life. It was still wrong, still unfair to us, but it also sucks for her. She's losing friends and needs real help. I hope she gets it. Update 2. I'm not sure where to begin, but here we go. I'm going to just go ahead and take my things back. The thought crossed my mind about recording myself while I do it, but that just feels strange, and honestly, the legal side of that seems murky. I'm also not really worried about her reacting violently or aggressively if she comes back. At this point, the whole situation seems almost humiliating for her. It feels less like anger and more like an attempt to get attention or sympathy. I can't really say how much of what she felt was genuine or how much was, consciously or not, exaggerated to satisfy that need. All I know is that I still hope she's okay. I admit, I've pushed people away myself when struggling with my own health issues, though never in such a dramatic fashion, so I won't go around calling her crazy. My boyfriend actually reminded me that I wore my jeans just last week, and that all of us had been listening to the vinyl out in the living room not all that long ago. It's made me wonder if what happened was perhaps a single episode, or if this is an ongoing issue that she usually manages to keep hidden. Either way, it's been a strange, uncomfortable experience, and I can't help but still hope she finds whatever help or comfort she really needs. Update 3. She came back. Not alone. Her mum texted first thing asking if they could swing by for a quick, calm collection, and I said yes, as long as she messaged when they were downstairs so I could let them in and keep things contained. The minute I saw them in the entry, I knew how it would go. Her mum had that brisk, purse-lipped look again, and my housemate shuffled behind her like a kid after detention. We stayed in the kitchen. My boyfriend made tea he didn't drink. She tried to start with jokes, little half-smiles that didn't land, and then it just broke into an apology she hadn't rehearsed enough to sound convincing. She kept skirting eye contact with me, finding my boyfriend's shoulder instead, which felt like someone scratching at an old mosquito bite and calling it kindness. Her mum did the rest of the talking. She won't be staying here anymore. We've already spoken to the GP. All keys back, all of them. That last part actually mattered. Our spare key went missing in December and I'd half convinced myself I'd misplaced it. Her mum produced 2 keys from a tiny zip pouch with the efficiency of a magician pulling scarves from a sleeve, and the shame on my housemate's face landed heavier than anything else she said. We did it cleanly. She and her mum went to her room, bagged clothes in those noisy blue IKEA sacks, and I followed to take my things back, one by one, without making it into a ceremony. My jeans were still clipped to the hanger with the imprint of the peg on the waistband. The charm bracelet was tucked into a little cardboard gift box that wasn't mine, with a scribbled note inside that just said soon. I don't know what soon was supposed to mean. That word is going to rattle in my head for a while. My boyfriend's work shirt smelled like our detergent, which weirdly made me angrier than if it had smelled like her perfume. There were other small bites out of our life that I hadn't clocked until I was in there. Our recipe card for aubergine parm pinned to a corkboard, his handwriting circled with a heart as if handwriting could be proprietary, a cheap disposable camera photo from the living room where my face had been cut out, the rest of us grinning like a gap-toothed smile. I put everything that was ours in a tote bag, took quick photos of where it had been, and then just stood there in the doorway of her ensuite listening to the sound of their bags zip zip zip. I don't want to turn this into a detective story. I needed proof for myself more than anything. Back in the kitchen, she finally looked at me and said she was sorry in a way that sounded like a script she didn't believe in. She asked if we could stay friends, that phrase so light it floated up and out the open window. I told her no. I told her I hoped she would get on with whatever care her mom was arranging and that I didn't want her to contact either of us for any reason that wasn't strictly practical about the lease. She nodded at the table, and her mom nodded at me, and the whole thing felt like closing a lid on something that had been rattling on the counter for days. We did the lock the next morning. I messaged our agent and, miraculously, got a same-day call back and written permission to change the cylinder as long as we dropped off a spare at their office. My boyfriend went to the hardware shop down the road and came back with one of those little boxes that makes you feel like you're doing grown-up surgery. It took 15 minutes and a YouTube video. The new key clicked in that clean, precise way that made me want to sit on the floor and cry with relief. I wiped down the doorknob and, for good measure, every light switch and handle in the place like I was exfoliating the flat itself. Later that afternoon, a florist buzzed. I thought it was the spare key courier and answered without thinking. The bouquet looked like a wedding that got rearranged into a vase, big blousy peonies, a stupid ribbon. The card was for my boyfriend, but it was addressed to his silly nickname that only I use, which made my stomach drop sideways. The message tried so hard to be neutral it did a backflip. Thank you for being kind. Wishing you all the best in life. No name. No number. I put the flowers straight into the bin under the sink like they were hot, tied the bag up and took it out to the big bins in the courtyard. I sent one text to her and her mom on the same thread. Do not send anything here. Do not contact him. Her mom replied 2 minutes later, all caps understood, which somehow made me like her a little. The agent sent over paperwork that afternoon for a deed of assignment. She can pass the tenancy to someone new if we all agree. Our mutual friend put us on to a friend of a friend who works nights at the hospital and needs a quiet place to sleep during the day. We FaceTimed her from the living room, and for the first time in weeks I looked at our sofa and didn't see either a threat or a theater. She had kind eyes above her mask line and made a joke about being impervious to leftover aubergine smells. She can move in mid-month if reference is clear. If not, we can cover the gap without the world ending. Either option is survivable. There was one last, strange coda. That evening, after everything was done, I found a notification on my phone from an old, rarely checked email account. It was a draft shared with me on Google Docs from her personal email. The title was my name. I hovered over it for a full minute feeling my pulse in my tongue. My boyfriend saw my face and said, "You don't have to open it." I opened it. It was a paragraph-long apology that looked like it had been written at 3 a.m. No punctuation for the first 5 lines, my name spelled 3 different ways, the word unfair crossed out and replaced with selfish, then selfish crossed out and replaced with stupid. There was a final sentence that read, "I'll make it easy for you," and then nothing. The cursor blinked. I closed it. A minute later the share link went dead. I'm taking that as the last word. Tonight, the flat feels like ours again in the unglamorous ways that matter. We ate on the floor with the telly on, my boyfriend burnt the garlic and swore like it offended his ancestors, and I didn't jump each time the buzzer went. There's still that slightly bruised feeling in the air. You don't just put skin back on after something's picked at it. But the white noise in my head has dialed down. I don't think she's evil. I don't think she's okay. I don't need to decide which matters more. I need a normal night's sleep and to wake up in a flat where nobody's fingers wander where they're not invited. And for the first time in a week, that feels possible. Update 4. The new girl moved in on a Tuesday like she'd been rehearsing for it. She texted 10 minutes out and arrived with one suitcase, a plant that looked already asleep, and a thermos she held like a small pet. She works nights, so everything about her is dialed down. Shoes off at the door, laugh that sits inside her mouth, a habit of pausing before she opens a cupboard like she's listening for a heart behind it. We showed her the blackout blind in the spare room and she breathed out like it was a miracle people had solved a problem before she had to ask. I watched her arrange a single photo on the dresser, 2 kids in wetsuits on a beach, no faces, just shoulders and horizon, and felt my shoulders drop 2 inches. There was no theater in her. The flat, for the first time in weeks, didn't feel like it was staging a play. We did the clean the way you do when you want to rub out memory marks without tearing a page. My boyfriend tackled the oven door with a fury that should probably be saved for social injustices, and I took on her old room with latex gloves and a playlist of happy nonsense I could sing off key to. There's a light scratch along the skirting where her bed used to be, a little carved line like someone doodled with a key. I ran a cloth along the edge and felt something not floor. An envelope had slipped down and glued itself with dust to the wall. It wasn't sealed. Inside was nothing dramatic, a florist receipt for those ridiculous peonies and a bus ticket to nowhere useful from a day I can track by the shirt I was wearing, the back of the ticket covered in loops of my boyfriend's nickname, over and over until the ink started scratching. There was also the little cardboard box that had held my charm bracelet with that bright, stupid soon written inside the lid again, this time crossed out and replaced with stop. I actually laughed, one sharp bark that startled me more than it should have. I propped the envelope on the desk like something awaiting triage and closed the blind. The agent sent the deed of assignment for us to sign and the new girl to sign and the old housemate too, not signed by virtue of not being here. I wrote our names where they go and felt, embarrassingly, like I was putting fresh pillowcases on a situation. We made coffee, weak by accident, and I leaned back and watched steam climb out of his mug and not cloud a single problem. Around 4, my phone rang an unfamiliar number. Is this my name? It was the clipped, cautious tone of someone whose job sits too close to people's bad days. I was apparently listed as an emergency contact for her at the GP. My mouth did the self-directed laugh this time. I said no, that needed to be changed, that her mum had the right numbers. The receptionist was gentle in a way that had me holding my breath to stop any of it turning into wobble. We'll update that now. 2 minutes later my screen lit up with her mum. No hello, just I'm so sorry. I didn't think to check that list. It's been a lot. It made me want to make her a cup of tea through the phone. She didn't tell me much because that's not her job and not my right, but she said there's an appointment set and someone with a title had said words that sounded heavy and ordinary at once. She also said, with a little cough like she was embarrassed to be a courier for weirdness, that she'd found more bits in a drawer and did I want them or the bin. Not here, I told her. Drop them at the agent, please. Of course, she said, the way people say of course when they mean God. Yes, please let me do at least one thing right today. We made aubergine parm because we're not superstitious and also because we had aubergines bought optimistically that were on the turn. He burnt the garlic in exactly the same way and swore in exactly the same rhythm. It was almost farcical how comforting that was. New girl padded out in fluffy socks to tell us goodnight even though it was 7 a.m. in her body and we whispered back like we'd snuck in after curfew. Somewhere in all of that, I stopped bracing my shoulders every time there was a noise outside like a boxer waiting for the bell. A courier with the agent's logo dropped an envelope the next day that felt heavier than paper should. Inside were the small bites of our life that I didn't know I wanted back until I touched them. The recipe card with his looping handwriting, the corner of a photo I'd convinced myself was lost, my ear is on it, ridiculous, that I recognized my own ear, the missing spare key tag chewed at the edge like a mouse got at it. There was 20 quid sellotaped to the receipt for the lock cylinder with for the key cutting in the bin bag, from her mum scrawled across the note. There was a single line apology in her handwriting that didn't do loops this time. I won't make it your problem anymore. No signature. The kind of sentence that sits down and folds its hands for once. And then, because nothing exits quietly, the buzzer went at 10 to midnight with an overeager hello? 2 pizzas? Delivered to my boyfriend's silly nickname with our address written out in full, flat number 2. The driver was doing the thing where he talks to the intercom like you're deaf and rude. We hadn't ordered anything and the look on my boyfriend's face landed between a flinch and an eye roll. I told the guy he had the wrong flat. He insisted, reading the name off his order screen. It wasn't a restful way to test my heartbeat. We let it time out. The buzzers in this building carry just enough to raise the hair on your forearms. I wrote one text to her mum. We just had a takeaway ordered here under his nickname. Please make sure our address isn't being used for any contact. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared twice. Then, I am so sorry. I took her phone this morning. I'll call the app. It won't happen again. And it didn't. It was such a small thing I could hold it at arm's length, and such a pointed thing that my stomach did a tiny knot anyway. It's maddening how bodies remember alarms even when the fire is out. New girl left her first note on the fridge, a doodled sun with a sleep 10:6, wake me if fire. Written underneath. It was the most reasonable instruction I've read all year. There is something democratically soothing about living with someone who writes milk? And not a paragraph-long manifesto of feeling in your shared space. We picked up the vinyl that evening and put it on like we were daring ourselves. It crackled at the edge and jumped once where the groove is scratched and then settled into a song that has always sounded like a first day of spring in the cold. My boyfriend sat on the floor and leant his head on my knee like he needed grounding, and I threaded my fingers through his hair like I was stitching something back together. The silly nickname made a brief reappearance in my mouth and we both laughed at the same time, relief making us stupid. If you're going to salvage anything you love, you have to risk saying the normal thing out loud again. The agent called to say references cleared in record time, paperwork complete, deposit moved where deposit goes. I went to the office with a spare key that clicks like a polite cough and watched the receptionist label it with the neatest handwriting I've ever seen. There's a small theater in bureaucracy that I suddenly appreciate. The woman behind the desk said, "All right then, All settled, in that way older women in admin make you feel like you've won a minor war with peace. 2 days later, because my life still has a sense of humor, our mutual friend sent a short message saying she'd bumped into her mum at the chemist and that she'd passed on that the pizzas were not a thing and that the flowers were stupid and that she wished us boring evenings for the rest of the month. I took the wish like a benediction and told my boyfriend I'd frame it if it came on nice paper. The only unexpected guest after that was the one I summoned by accident. The smoke alarm chose pasta night to become a diva, bleeding itself silly while the fan did nothing and the windows let in a perfect square of cold air. New girl patted out in a hoodie, eyes puffy, and instead of the dramatic panic I'd been training for, she reached up with a wooden spoon like she'd been doing it her whole life and pressed the reset. They hate steam more than smoke, she said, rubbing one eye with her wrist. We all laughed at the same time and it sounded like people being people and not characters in a bad story. The garlic didn't burn. The buzzer stayed quiet. I put my bracelet back on. It sits dumbly, cheerfully on my wrist, a 12-year-old gift with a cheap lobster claw that catches my sleeve and makes me swear under my breath. Her mum popped one more text through that I'll keep. She's with me. She's not coming by. Thank you for handling it kindly. It's not a medal and I don't want one, but it felt like closing a door that had been left on the latch long after anyone deserved fresh air from it. We went to bed early because new girl had the late shift and the flat likes to be polite now. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb without the tiny guilty pang I've had since March. It buzzed once, a calendar alert I hadn't deleted yet. Rent due. Ordinary life tapping me on the shoulder like a boring friend. I'll take it. I'll take every dull ring and soft click and badly timed pasta boil there is. I don't care what soon meant anymore. The only thing I'm interested in is now, and now is the sound of my boyfriend's breathing going heavy next to me and someone else's keys clinking gently in a bowl down the hall. It's the clean click of the new cylinder and the tiny scratch where the old bed scraped and the way that scratch will stay but stop catching my eye. It's the first real night I've slept without rehearsing conversations in months. And when I woke up, the plant on the kitchen table had turned its leaves to the light like it remembered how. Update 5. It snuck back in as a noise, not a person. My phone did the thing where it invents a heartbeat for you. An unknown air tag is moving with you. The screen looked stupidly calm about it. I was halfway up the stairs with a bag of onions banging my thigh, keys in my teeth, new girl doing that soft sleepwalk from her room with pillow creases on her cheek. My boyfriend took the bag out of my hands as if weight were the problem. You think you'll go full detective and instead you just stand very still and listen, like the flat might hum the answer. The notification map hovered a vague little ghost over our kitchen. We put the bags down like we were setting a baby on a rug and my boyfriend started opening everything with the delicacy of diffusing a souffle. It was in the tote we'd been using since the clear out, the canvas one with the ugly supermarket slogan I've always hated and never thrown out because it's the perfect size for tinned tomatoes. The chirp gave itself away when he shifted the lining. He teased the disc out with 2 fingers like it could bite. White, bland as a mint, it pulsed in my hand and I put it on the counter and took a step back like it was radioactive joy. New girl, bless her unflappable soul, reached up and knocked the biscuit tin off the shelf with one clean movement and we dropped it in and closed the lid. The sound came up once like a tiny bird trapped in a drainpipe and then went quiet. I didn't cry. I did the other thing, the tight laugh that lives behind your ribs. My boyfriend nodded, just once, like a person who has decided to be capable even if he isn't. We didn't do drama. We did biscuits. We pulled the tin back out and wedged it under a chair like we were pinning a dream. I texted her mum because I've discovered there is a version of me that keeps a direct line to a stranger and calls it sensible. Found a tracker in a bag that came back from her room. We've immobilized it. Can you come get it from the agent? We won't be home at noon. It wasn't noon and we would be home, but I wanted the distance of a desk between us and anything with a battery that thought it had the right to follow me to the corner shop. Her mum called immediately. Oh, for God's sake, she said, not at me, and then, I'll take it. Thank you for telling me. I am so sorry. The way she hits the doubles on so makes me want to pack her a sandwich every time. You can hear exhaustion sit down in her voice. She didn't make excuses. She never does. I will dispose of it properly, she said, like a person who has started to keep a list on the fridge that says dispose of things properly and is genuinely ticking things off. I wrapped the biscuit tin in a tea towel because somehow that felt politer than letting it clank around in my tote with the onions it had already tried to stalk. I took it to the agent and put it on the counter like I was handing over a cake I was proud of. The receptionist did that brisk little chin lift and said, right. Name and flat, please, and then lowered her voice for the thing that is not paper. We had a call from her mother. We'll keep it behind until she comes. A man in a high-vis vest was arguing softly about a lost parcel to my left. To my right, a printer did the comforting domestic asthmatic wheeze they all do. There are few greater comforts than boring noises around a moment that could have gone cinematic. We went straight from there to the police station because normal people are born and then someone gives them an incident number eventually. The front desk had that municipal tang of bleach and rubber. A woman in a navy fleece with a braid so neat it could cut bread listened to my small, tidy story and gave it the weight it deserved without making it a world-ending meteor. We'll log it, she said, fingers moving in that steady way that makes you believe in process, and if that device is associated with a named individual and there's a pattern, you've done the right thing by coming in now. She asked if I wanted to hand it in. I said no, it was already in a chain of custody I weirdly trust more. She made a note of that too. She gave me a number on a little tear-off slip like a raffle prize. I walked out feeling like I'd bought myself a very boring insurance policy, and I have never been so relieved to be bored. Back home, we did the other passwords. You never realize how many small doors your life has until you go around locking them with 2 thumbs on a screen. Our Netflix threw us out mid-episode of a series where nobody smiles with their teeth. Spotify had a playlist I hadn't made named soon. The cover image was a smiling dog, and I stared at the dog until the joke curdled. I didn't open it. I clicked log out everywhere and watched the names of devices I didn't recognize evaporate. Bedroom, gone. Living, gone. Kitchen, gone. The only thing left was phone and laptop and the little speaker box in our living room that sometimes plays Rain when new girl has a nap. It felt like shooing a ghost out with a broom. Her mum texted an hour later, picked up. Disposed. Deleted. GP updated. I'll keep you off every list there is. I sent back, thank you, and then I put my phone face down and made us beans on toast because there is nothing a complicated day can do to a decent slice of bread that butter can't correct. My boyfriend bit into his like he'd been fasting from anything uncomplicated. He looked at me over the crust with the dumb, beautiful affection of a man who has found both beans in the absence of extra devices in his home. You've got Marmite on your face, he said, because that is the level of romance I can handle right now. At 4, because the universe adores slapstick, the building manager knocked. We almost jumped out of our skins and then laughed at ourselves like we were in on the joke now. He'd had a complaint about someone tailgating through the main door last week, showed me a printout still warm from the machine, grainy, time-stamped, a figure in a red coat with their face tucked down, hands full of a box. Not her, not necessarily. Red coats are everywhere and every CCTV is a bad painter. What stuck in my throat was the fact that he'd knocked to tell me, we're keeping an eye, he said, that gentle emphasis people use when they refuse to name what they're keeping an eye on. He asked if we needed extra fobs. We don't. We have what we have and for now it's enough. At 6 I got a text from our mutual friend so short it felt like a held breath. Her mum says appointment went ahead. That's all. It was tack phrased like a weather report. I imagined a room that smelled like both hand gel and carpet. I imagined someone with a title writing words that land heavy and ordinary. I let the picture exist and then let it float away. I am done being the storyteller of someone else's plot. We had a small evening on purpose. New girl padded out in those fluffy socks again and left a mug by the sink with a note my mother would approve of. Washed X. Someone buzzed twice around 9 and I went cold and then warm because it was just the courier who always buzzes the wrong flat for number 12, and he did the sheepish wave when I stuck my head out the window. Sorry. He mouthed, exaggerated like a cartoon. I want to bake him a cake for being exactly who he is. We put the silly nickname back in my mouth and watched it do absolutely nothing but make him smile. I like that we can defang things by using them. The plant on the table has pushed out one new, ridiculous leaf like a hand waving at anyone who cares to look. I put the charm bracelet on again and it clicked soft against the mug when I lifted it and didn't sound like a bell for anything but tea. Just before bed I went to the old spare room without quite meaning to. The scratch along the skirting is still there. It is not sinister, it is a scratch. I ran my finger along it and it didn't catch. The blind sticks a little bit at the bottom, and you have to nudge it with your nail to get it to settle. The kind of flaw you live with without calling it a flaw. I turned off the light and stood for a tiny second in the dark listening for some large theme to announce itself. It didn't. The fridge hummed. The street did its distant tires on wet thing. Somewhere upstairs a toilet flushed and then there was the quiet of a building on its best behavior. In bed, my boyfriend rolled toward me, already half asleep, and mumbled something that might have been beans or thanks into my hair. If there is a difference, I can live with not knowing. We have a number in my purse, paper with our names on it at an office, a plant turning toward the window like it remembers how, and the feeling you get when you close a lid and it stays closed. Tomorrow I'm going to forget which cupboard the mugs are in and swear under my breath and answer emails and put a load on, and that will be the wildest thing that happens all day. I am greedy for that kind of adventure now.